Hey pigs, how you doing? Welcome to this video. We're going to talk about Mercury retrograding through Aries beginning on April 1st. If you like my content and want to support me, please subscribe to my Patreon, like this video, give it a comment, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my YouTube channel, my TikTok, my Instagram, all that good stuff. And if you want to book a consultation with me, be sure to check out my website. So yeah, let's talk about Mercury retrograde through Aries. Alright, so this will begin. Mercury will station retrograde on April 1st. And I think that's a really funny date because, it's April Fool's Day. Mercury's the trickster, just having fun. The archetype of Mercury is very, hey, let's see what can happen. Let's have a little bit of fun. With Mercury retrograding through Aries, I think it's also going to highlight a lot of the eclipse stories. It's going to kind of connect a lot of those details and allow us to really see things a little bit more from a distance. Now, Mercury in its retrograde phase is somewhat of a psychopomp, kind of going through the sign of Aries and kind of waking the dead in a way. So to me, this is kind of illustrating a lot of maybe there's certain issues that we're dealing with, certain connections that we have, contracts that we're signing, things that we need to review in communications with other people, kind of going over that again, kind of waking the dead and really trying to get to a point where we're seeing, okay, what actually needs to be said, where are maybe some of my insecurities. Sometimes I think, especially with Mercury in Aries, there can be this kind of, Aries is a sign that primarily is focused on getting things done, that quickness, that kind of response, that let's do this, let's go, let's raise the stakes up. I'm seeing them do this, so I got to raise up my competition level. And in that, I think Mercury has a little bit more to go over. Mercury has to kind of acknowledge, okay, maybe this is my limits, my personal limitations. Maybe I want to do this thing, but I need to recognize, okay, what is my own personhood, which this flows out through. The essence of myself, which I can better express this with. Kind of recognizing, okay, if I want to communicate this, this is where I am. I need to be a little bit more consistent with my own boundaries, not be so overpowering with others. But yeah, so Mercury will station retrograde at 27 degrees of Aries, and it kind of depends on the phase that Mercury has in your chart, where Mercury is placed, what house it's in, what house Aries is in your chart. If you have a natal retrograde Mercury in your chart, this could actually be a little bit more of a auspicious time for you, allowing that kind of, I was born in this, molded by this energy to kind of come through. Mercury retrograde natally in the chart can indicate having a better understanding and a better navigation through these more difficult areas that Mercury will retrograde through. It could be a little bit more of a time where you shine, kind of going against the grain, collecting things that you need to, retracing your steps backwards, and kind of putting together, okay, this is actually what I want to say before I go forward. This is actually what I want to do. So yeah, this is a time where it's important to kind of put things into review, to not get so focused on moving forward, but recognize that this is kind of like Mercury is going back in the sky. So what would Mercury do? What would Hermes do, right? Well, he's going backwards. He's the psychopomp during this retrograde phase, going through the underworld, waking the dead, bringing back the necessary connections that we need to sustain us, to connect us to life, kind of waking up our minds in some way to some of the intellect that we need to deal with, that we need to kind of flesh out, that we need to see a little bit more revitalization in those areas. But one thing also to consider with this Mercury retrograde is that Mercury will cazimi the Sun at 22 degrees of Aries. That will indicate the middle of this retrograde phase. So Mercury will be coming back to this area. He first gets to the 22nd degree of Aries on March 23rd. So pay attention to March 23rd. What's going on for you, how things are coming up, what's cropping up for you, kind of understanding some of those things, realizing, okay, maybe this didn't go the way I wanted, maybe I wanted to communicate this in a better way, because the exalted Sun in Aries will conjoin Mercury again at 22 degrees on April 11th. So it's kind of like I get a second chance. I can do this again. You know, it may not have gone the way I wanted to, so I've been reviewing it, been focusing on it. It's all I can think about. You know, Mercury kind of indicating the mind, indicating the intellect, really, where we're kind of focused in certain directions and kind of, okay, this is where I really want to start things. So I'm going to plan ahead. I'm going to get this going. I'm going to figure out maybe the problems that I have to deal with before Mercury can really go forward again, before Mercury stations direct, and then that's kind of time to implement those plans that we wanted to take place. So beware of that. Now, this is also April 11th when Mercury conjoins the Sun. Like I said, it's the middle of the retrograde phase for Mercury, and it's also a couple days after our second and last eclipse for this series. There will still be more eclipses in the Aries Libra axis. Yeah, so on April 11th, we'll have that middle, that kind of that halfway checkpoint of the Mercury retrograde in Aries. And the Sun cazimi with Mercury is a little bit of an illumination time where we're kind of getting to the heart of what this retrograde is really bringing up for us. Kind of understanding, okay, this is maybe where some of the puzzle pieces are falling. I have to kind of wait in order to figure out the rest of the plan, to kind of put things together. But I also think with Mercury in Aries, it can kind of be a little bit of shooting from the hip. It's just acknowledging, okay, sometimes we don't say what we mean. Insecurities with how we approach the raw energy of being human and being ourselves can take up our minds instead of actually communicating what we really want to say, what we really want to come across as, how we really wish to integrate ourselves with other people. These eclipses that are kind of highlighting this Mercury retrograde phase, it's important to kind of not be too overly powering with how we communicate, but kind of recognizing, okay, this is where I want to go. I have to act, I have to choose, I have to make decisions to benefit my own autonomy. But with this retrograde phase, it kind of brings up, I can go back. I can say no. I can say something, well, I wanted to do this, but you know what? I realize I don't. I got a little bit more to the heart of what I want to do, and that's going to help me better express being myself. And I think that's important to recognize, that's important to remember. So yeah, that's Mercury, the beginning of Mercury station retrograde in Aries on April 11th. The cazimi with the Sun at 22 degrees of Aries on April 11th. Then we'll finally get into Mercury stationing direct on April 25th. So this is about 25-day cycle, 24, 25. But also remember that the shadow points where Mercury is can kind of bring up a little bit more areas of, okay, we're implementing this plan, we're taking this forward. It takes a little bit of time for Mercury to get past those shadow points, so don't worry, Mercury is going to have to gain some speed after he stations direct. So just, take in this period as a time of we're walking back. Sometimes we're a little bit slower than others. Sometimes we're a little bit faster than others, especially when Mercury is conjoining the Sun. But like he hits his pace in that retrograde cycle, he'll do a loop-de-loop, and that will kind of indicate him going a little bit slower in order to go forward. As much as we want to shoot and get things done, we have to take a little bit more time to aim, to get things right, to kind of focus, review. And that is difficult for Aries. Aries is kind of has a pace of just going, keep going, not stopping. But don't be too focused on the speed that you're going at. Be a little bit more cautious about where you are with what you're doing, how you feel. Kind of getting into a little bit more of how can you deal with this in a way that benefits you. Recognizing, okay, maybe I have some insecurities, but the more that I confront those, the more that I'm ready to deal with that, the better I am. The more equipped I am to move forward eventually. The more equipped I am to think for myself, to use my intellect for my good, to kind of raise the dead in a way. That's what Mercury is kind of doing in that sign, especially when he goes retrograde. Kind of recognize, okay, where are some projects that I need to kind of wake the dead, kind of make some unsettling changes that other people are not wishing to engage with, but I still need to do that regardless. yeah, this will be an interesting time. But again, Mercury retrograde is always important to kind of walk with the planets instead of trying to force them to go in different ways. This is what is being indicated in the sky. This is what Mercury is indicating. So it's better to just kind of follow that pace than try to create a new one. To just kind of say, okay, as above, so below, right? Hope you enjoyed that, talking about Mercury retrograde through Aries. If you have any questions, any comments, please leave them down in the comment section below. Again, with Mercury retrograde, it's important to review some things. Sometimes technology goes haywire.